Alright guys, now listen, I wish I knew this defense all along. I learned this defense from the game that Magnus Carlsen recently played against his e4 opponent. So that's where I'm drawing my inspiration. After pawn to e4, I usually advise beginners and intermediate level players, even advanced players, to respond with e5. I mean, why beating about the bush with offbeat openings like the French, the Caro-Kann, the Alekhine? I mean, just go for it, baby. Just hit it with e5. Equal game, no risks at all. Let the best player win. Now, after this, white usually plays knight to f3, after which I recommend to go with the two knights defense after seeing the Italian game on the board. This is the Italian game, and this defense is called the two knights defense. Now, the other way you can remember this is as if you want to allow white to play the fried liver attack with knight g5, which is the top played move, by the way, after which you respond with d5, then white takes, and this is where you pause a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. At this point, your opponent will be expecting you to go into the main line with this move, knight f5, attacking the bishop, so that after white gives you a check, you now go pawn to c6. Spoiler alert, this is not the move that I would recommend in this video, but I just want to show you the main lines that your opponents expect to see. So when you play the two knights defense, you accept to play the rest of the game while being down a pawn in exchange for piece activity. Now there's a problem. This type of two knights defense is not for anyone, period. While it is the most recommended in books, I can't waste my time teaching this to beginners and intermediate level players unless if you are tactically sharp or otherwise. The thing is, you have to know a bit of theory and accept being down a pawn for the time being. But the moment you stop attacking or the moment you run out of moves, white may end up being up a pawn even up to the end game. So the advantage of this type of two knights defense eventually turns out to be a disadvantage once you miss a critical line, such as rook e8 for example. It only takes one wrong move for white to actually come back into the game and continue being up a pawn like this. Knight d4, they don't have any weaknesses. Next, d3 is coming, then queen takes. So what do I recommend in this video? What response did I see from Magnus? So after knight g5, you still go d5, and after pawn takes, you simply go knight f5, obviously. But after bishop b5 check, you don't sacrifice your pawn in exchange for piece activity and development. So instead of risking it, the move I recommend here, which I saw from Magnus recently, is bishop d7. With this line, you just want to oversimplify the game and play a well-balanced game. For example, if white takes with check, just know that you have a slight advantage as black, because from here, all the moves you're going to be playing will be coming with tempo. First of all, you are about to get back your pawn, and look at your pawn structure. Your e5 pawn is intact together with these pawns. If white tries to hold on to his pawn with the move pawn to c4, here you can even take this. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So there's literally nothing that white can do here to hold on to this pawn. Or instead of pawn to c4, let's say white tries to hold on to his d pawn like this. Well, once again, I mean, there's just nothing that white can do. That's your pawn. Let's say knight c3 comes. I mean, what else can they do? Once again, you can just take. I mean, there's nothing here as well. For example, knight takes, you can simply take back. And in most of these lines, you're going to be castling long and begin your attack on the king side as highlighted. For example, the game may continue as follows. Castle short, and then you simply continue playing normal chess. You simply want to castle short. So let's say pawn to d3 is played, paving way for their dark squared bishop. Now you can simply castle short. That's all. Queen h5 doesn't do a thing. There's no checkmate as long as you have eyes or spiritual eyes. You can simply take that knight, and after bishop takes, your knight on a5 served its purpose already. So it's high time you bring it back into the game, because knights are more powerful when they are on the center of the board, and knight on the rim is dim. So that's what you just did. This is very much playable. Even in OTB classical tournaments, I highly recommend. But there's this other line that you need to know as well. After bishop takes check and you take back with your queen, then knight c3 and knight takes. It's not every time you're going to see your opponents taking back. You know, strong players like keeping the tension just to complicate things a little bit. So you'll see them playing something like queen f3 here, creating two attackers versus one defender. So if you don't know what to do, just go knight to f6, and once again, you're okay. There is no b4, by the way. You can simply take But anyways, after queen f3 by white in this position, what I recommend is to be aggressive. You don't just have to be defending. There's this pawn here, so go for it. Knight b4. White must undevelop his queen in order to have an equal game from here. There's nothing they can do, by the way. If something like queen e4, for example, your pawn is under attack, the normal move that you may consider is bishop d6 and then castle long. You don't want to castle short just yet because of checkmate. Need to be a little bit careful. But even after queen e4, this is why you can even consider to castle long, because queen takes e5 can be met with rook e8. What if white doesn't take your large squad bishop right away? In fact, the top played move here is actually queen e2. White is simply asking you to take his bishop so that he can take back with tempo. Will you do that? No, taking the bishop will only help white to activate his queen on a better square. So you simply want to go bishop d6 here, just supporting your pawn, and say after something like d4, because what else? You can simply castle short, knowing that after de, you can simply take that pawn as well, simplifying everything, right? White can't take because of rook e8 pin, so they'll have to castle short, after which you go rook e8, simple chess. If the queen leaves, the bishop falls. So queen d3 has to be played, and then you simplify the game in whichever way you want. I'll start with bishop takes, so that once the queen takes back, now I take on d5 with my queen just to oversimplify the game. This white doesn't like. White doesn't like exchanging queens in the opening stage because the game becomes too oversimplified and boring. Again, this is what I highly recommend, whether in standard chess, rapid, blitz, or bullet, period. This is a game changer, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have been looking for a weapon to play against e4, just think of the two knights defense, but remember not to sacrifice your c pawn after bishop b5 check. Just go bishop d7, and from there just start playing normal chess, ensuring that there is no checkmate on h7, and you are done. So I want to show you one example game that I had recently following these same ideas so that you don't get bored as well. So this was a bullet match, and I'm only interested in the first 15 moves of the game, and that means it wasn't a perfect game, but my opponent was a 2174 rated player. He started with e4, I played e5. Standard move, knight to f3, knight c6, then bishop c4 was played. So I still went for the two knights defense. By the way, one major reason I like playing the two knights defense is that knight f6 forces white to do something about this pawn. So decent players here respond with pawn to d3, and that's what I like, because that gives me time to castle short early given a chance. For example, after white castles short, first of all, I can go pawn to d6 and consider playing h6, then castle short, simple chess. But if bishop g5 comes, I can even change my mind and go h6, so that after bishop h4, I push my g pawn to g5. This is a well-known line in the two knights defense. You can even sack your g5 pawn, by the way, because there is no knight takes due to h4 and white's bishop is trapped. This is only proven to be good for black because you can even sacrifice your h-rook, so that after knight takes, you first of all take the free bishop. This pawn is pinned by our bishop, so if white takes with this h-pawn, you can now go queen h7, and next you want to play knight g4, then checkmate. That's just how easy this can be. For example, knight d2, realizing this idea by white, you can just go bishop g4 here, so that if something like queen e1, now you go knight h5, intending to take this pawn, and let's just make a random move like knight f7. You can simply go knight takes g3, and this checkmate can't be stopped. So this is one major reason why I like playing the two knights defense with this move knight to f6 on move number 3. Just to force white to play pawn to d3 and then develop my bishop, then castle short given a chance. But here is how the game went. My opponent played knight g5, the fried liver move, after which I played d5, following the same ideas, then knight a5, and after bishop b5 check, I did not play pawn to c6. This is when I played bishop d7, simply blocking the check. My opponent took, by the way, and I took back with my queen, and here is where he was confused. Here my 2174 rated opponent played pawn to b4. Of course, this was a bullet match, but you will see such kinds of blunders when you do the right thing. I simply took. After c3, I simply played bishop c5. I didn't even know what was happening. Instead of playing d4, my opponent just castled short. And then here Stockfish advises to castle long, but I just castled short anyways. And then my opponent played d4. I just took exchanging everything, then played bishop d6. Simple chess with no tactics at all. Look at this. I ended up checkmating my opponent in this way after 60 moves. Look at this. Pap, pap, pap. Doot, 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 doot. Pap, 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 pap. Bicycle checkmate with only 2 seconds on the clock. So this, ladies and gentlemen, I highly recommend, especially for those of you who don't know what to do against e4. In the 2 knights defense, forget about pawn to c6 for the time being. Just play bishop d7 if you want to play an equal game and avoid tactics. This is all for today, you guys. I hope you learned 1 or 2 things and hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel, because that's what encourages me to keep on making more wonderful videos just like this one. Until next time, bye bye.